Hey YouTube, Wayne's Fish Tanks 99 here, back at it for another video. On this week's video, I'm just going to be going over what's new on the current aquarium, and then I'm also just going to be doing a quick in-depth showing of the fish tank room that I have downstairs, just with my saltwater mixing station, RODI system, the cost, the stands I put together, just to give you guys a rough estimate of a beginner DIY system that you guys can do that's rather inexpensive, pretty easy to set up, and not too much maintenance. And it also makes your life a lot easier without having to carry heavy buckets up and down the stairs or just carrying heavy buckets in general. So I'll go over that in a second, but first I'll just show you guys an update on the tank. So here's just a little update video of the tank. Definitely got some algae going on, which is definitely normal the first little while after setting up your tank. Torch coral is doing very well. Polyps are looking good too. There is, I don't know if you can see in the top there where my finger is, there's a starfish that seemed to have hitched a ride on here. It's moving around the polyps all the time. The two clownfish are doing very well, eating well, which is great. I feed them every other day, probably about 5 days a week, just not that I overfeed them. Plus there's lots of little scraps that they leave behind anyway that worst case they could pick up. Definitely next purchase, probably on Boxing Day, is going to be, I'll be investing in a cleanup crew, probably get some snails, as well as a shrimp or two, just to get some of the algae under control, and if there's any food left behind, those animals will take care of it. So yeah, that's a little update on the tank. Otherwise, not a whole lot is new. I'll definitely show you guys when I get more corals and some of the cleanup crew members on Boxing Day. I'll definitely give you guys another in-depth tour after that's all said and done. So yeah, without further ado, I'll bring you guys downstairs to the fish tank room. Okay, so here's just a little video touring my fish room downstairs and my furnace room. Furnace, everything. It's just a small little storage room that I have, keep all my stuff in, and I made some room for my saltwater mixing station. So I have two containers that I purchased from Walmart. They were about $20 each, so about 40 bucks there. I bought a stand also from Walmart, just that I put all my supplies on. Yes, I use Fritz Pro Aquatics Reef Pro Mix. I wrote down when I purchased it that half a cup of the salt equals about 1 gallon of water, just that I know about how much to mix. I have an LED aquarium light just lighting up the room for now, as the one light bulb in the room isn't good enough, but I will upgrade to shop lights at some point. I have my Aquatic Life RODI system that I bought for about $140. You can order the replacement parts from Amazon. They're rather inexpensive. They need to be switched out about every 3,000 gallons or 6 months. I don't think I'll be hitting the 3,000 gallons, but definitely every 6 months I'll be switching them out. And up front here, the DI filter needs to be replaced every 6 months or 1,500 gallons, but I don't think I'll hit that either. So I have it hooked up to my garage. I just drilled a hole through the wall, have it hooked up to the system. Goes through everything. It goes into the RO water container, and the waste line goes behind my furnace just into the drain, floor drain, which is great. That way the runoff doesn't go all over the floor. I have the two buckets. One of them, the RODI water, I keep about half full, just in case there's ever a need to do a emergency water change. I did a water change last night, so I'll have to fill up my saltwater mixing container within the next couple days, just so I always keep some on hand in case there is ever an emergency. In there I have a power head just to keep the water circulating when I do have the saltwater mixing, a thermometer, and I have the pump that will pump the water from down here up the pipe up through the floor into the living room where I have my tank. It just hooks up to the back of the tank, so it just automatically, I can plug in the pump, have my wife upstairs. She'll let me know when the water's full. I'll unplug it, and then we're good to go. That way there's no carrying buckets up and down the stairs, which is great. What else? I think that's pretty much it for in here. I also built a couple stands just to keep the buckets off the floor. It's a little easier to maintain temperature as we are on a concrete floor, so I don't want to have the buckets cold all the time and have to heat the water every couple days. So at least this way, and this room is nice and warm in here since I do have my furnace in here. So yeah, that's going to be pretty much it for this video. As for total cost for setting up this fish tank room, the buckets were each $20. The stand was probably about $20 in wood. The shelf, again, another $20. The RODI system was $150. So again, we're looking at around $200 to $250 for something like this. It's pretty inexpensive, but again, it does allow me not to have to carry buckets up and down the stairs all the time, have water spill all over the floor, which is definitely a nuisance to clean up. So yeah, that's going to be it for this week's video. Next week's video, I'll probably go over how I test my aquarium, just the test kits that I do use, what I test for, what my parameters are like, and that way it'll give any newbies or anybody looking to see how I test or other ways of testing, just to give you guys a couple tips and show you guys how I do it. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's video, and I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.